I would like to invite all of you to come to the islands and see what we're doing in our Blue Community Sustainable Tourism Observatory. This is the area where we are. You can see we're very ocean oriented, mostly tourism beach communities. Our beaches have won the award several years in a row as the #1 beaches in America. Beautiful white sands. These are the cities and tourist areas that are part of our observatory core. And we also have recently added the new SMYRNA Beach, the city of Key West, and just last Saturday, the city of Orlando. And these are all very significant. New SMYRNA Beach has a leading education through Marine Discovery Center program, an annual symposium where they share research with everyone, the Shore Symposium, and utilizing my colleague and friend Jay Wallace-Nichol Blue Mind framework, and you can read about that in his bestseller book, Blue Mind. And Key West, of course, is an internationally known destination, and it is the model in the United States for climate change. The White House, the previous White House administration, let me clarify, designated it as the best model for climate mitigation in the United States, and they're a major leader in cultural preservation. And the city of Orlando is the largest tourism visited city in the United States with 73 million annual tourists. They have funding models to help tourism resorts become carbon neutral, and they've begun an innovative program called Fleet Farming, bringing home gardens to market to tourism through bicycle delivery. A very innovative, creative project through the city of Orlando. We work with the NASA Future Team concept, the science of planetary boundaries, the One Planet Living framework, the project management for sustainable development training, PM4SD, our own Blue community strategies and model, and heavy emphasis on experiential learning. So we put all that together to create the Blue Community Program for a sustainable planet and healthy ocean. The Futures Project came out of JPL, Jet Propulsion Laboratories, and Caltech, which is a major center for NASA, where in the 60s they created the Futures Team. And the Futures Team idea in the 60s, somebody asked the question, we've had this laser focus on getting a person onto the moon by the end of the decade. What do we do next? And nobody had an answer. And so they created a futures team, both internally, and they sent an RFP to get the external experts of the world together to help them think into the future. And it happened that my father won the RFP, and so I'm very familiar now with the project. At the time, I was a high school student and didn't even have a clue what he was doing because everything was top secret. But in later years, he was able to share with me. Kind of an interesting story with this. Their first proposal for living in the future was launching this spacecraft, which made the cover of Astronautics and Aeronautics magazine, that went into outer space, would unfold and be propelled by solar energy all the way to Jupiter for exploration. NASA rejected that project idea because they said the solar had no future. Think of what would have happened. But one of the projects that did eventually happen was the Grand Tour, later renamed the Voyager mission, which to this day is considered one of the most successful projects NASA's ever completed. And the Voyager mission and the Futures Project team have taught us many lessons. One, we have the potential to do new things we haven't done and to do them in new ways. And we can build on successes to do even greater things. And we can think outside the box, or in this case, outside the solar system. The Voyager is the only spacecraft ever to leave our solar system into the heliosphere. And that has attracted better employees and created more productivity and so forth. And most importantly, I think, is the success in the future needs planning for the future. So I mentioned we used the work of the Swedish Institute for Research and Resiliency at the University of Stockholm, and this science has really undergirded the Sustainable Development Goals and is driving, I think, sustainability metrics for the future, and something that all of us in tourism would be well advised to consider. We also came across this last year through the Villages Nature Project, an interesting model, the One Planet Living model, out of a group in the United Kingdom that we're now incorporating into our observatory metrics. And this is what they used at Village Nature to get the designation by UNEP as the most sustainable tourism resort in the world. They also recently won the most social policy relevant observatory as well. This last summer, we offered the first PM4SD training in the United States, and we're continuing that. So we train our hotels and restaurants and other tourism entities in better project management skills for sustainable development. And Sylvia Barbone on the left here delivers that training. And we have our own strategies, which we developed with the Walt Disney Company, of improving building design, promoting mass transit, water conservation, waste management, energy use, local organic hydroponic foods, sustainable seafood, coastal habitat and cultural heritage preservation, reducing the use of plastics, clean marina initiatives, education, and planning, policy, and management. I don't have all the figures for the Walt Disney Company, but when we asked them to work with us, we set 3 criteria for them. 1, it had to be something they are doing. 2, it had to be scalable from a bed and breakfast level all the way to their big, huge resorts, and that it had to be proven cost effective. And in the Walt Disney World area, where we do work most closely in Florida, these strategies are saving them $37 million a year in annual operating costs. So they have proven very effective, and they've become a leader in sustainability worldwide as a result of that. Our own model for the Blue Community Program, we base it on the 4 pillars of the GSDC criteria to develop sustainable social structures, and using those strategies, we create safe and just space for humanity and just and sustainable economic development within the limitations of the 9 planetary boundaries. And finally, I want to emphasize our focus in education and our observatory on experiential learning. This is at the Robinson Preserve at a recent conference we had at the Anna Marie Island, which has its own 100% solar business district. Has sustainable seafood systems. They call it the greenest town in America, with edible gardens on their main street, the sustainable seafood featuring mullet. They have their food come from the Gamble Creek farm and composting programs, and they even have a wild pig, which is from Spain, is now invasive species in Florida, that they've turned into a tourist product. And they have energy efficient buildings, able to withstand hurricanes to 250 miles an hour with full solar heat gain, on-demand hot water systems, foam insulated attics. And they did all this while retaining the historical architecture. One of the project managers said the best compliment he got on a project was after they opened it, 2 women were walking by a shop and he overheard one saying, "It's a remarkable job how they restored these old buildings." They didn't realize they were new buildings. They had done such a good job that way. They also have permeable walkways, improving natural water cycles, providing dry path walkways for tourism, and reducing flooding in hurricanes by 50%. So they can recover much faster and have much less damage to begin with. And they have rainwater collection systems. And there's 30 gardens along the avenue. It's inspired several personal gardens with seasonal, conventional varieties. And they work with an organization called ECO, a leading expert in tropical agriculture, so you can actually grow fruits and vegetables in the hot tropical weather of Florida and elsewhere year-round, which is quite amazing. Jubilee Organics is a new program we've just added to the observatory. And just 3 acres of land, they have 20,000 plants. They started out feeding their family, and they realized they were producing too much food for their family, so they started giving it away to the homeless. And they realized they didn't have enough homeless to give it away to, so they started selling it to the restaurants. And they do all this on 3 acres, and they do it all with no fertilizers and no pesticides. They have some of the most innovative, state-of-the-art farming techniques that actually restores the soil, not damages it, that I have come across anywhere in the world. And Ryan Duncan here on your left is the owner and manager of that system. We also offer a variety of sustainable food entries in our restaurants. I mentioned the wild pigs. They also serve lionfish, which is another invasive species. And they find ways to use these invasive species to become a tourist feature product as a result. Part of our observatory includes the historic Cortez fishing village that claims to be the oldest fishing village in America, certainly the oldest in Florida, and they are working to sustain the culture of fishing families while fishing more sustainably. And we're working with them to have programs with new business models, so when they fish sustainably, they not only make more profit on the fish, they get equity in the company as well. And part of that village includes the Florida Maritime Museum. You can see UNWTO liaison officer Sarbulan Khan here working with Popeye on that. The Robinson Preserve is one of our flagship tourist projects. It was old, degraded farmland. The farming had gone out of business, and they converted it to wetlands and tourism attractions with trails and activities. And it's now our second largest tourism attraction in our observatory with 350,000 visitors per year. And that happened just in the last few years. So that's a really great way to improve tourism while improving sustainability in the environment. And our beaches, I mentioned, received the Best Beach Award, but also the Clean Beach Award as well. The MOTE Marine Lab and Aquarium is world-renowned. They have a $40 million a year research budget. They also do education and exploration with scientists and explorers. And they have an educational aquarium to educate the public on what they have found in these programs. The city of St. Petersburg, the largest city in our observatory until Orlando. Orlando might be larger now, but St. Petersburg was the first Florida city and the 20th in the United States to commit to using 100% renewable energy in their city environment. And we also have clean marina initiatives. Our goal is to have 100% of marinas certified in our observatory boundaries. The Trade Winds Resort in our observatory is the largest resort on the Gulf of Mexico coast and has reduced their annual water consumption by 30%, and they become a leader in the lodging industry for this as well. One of the features they have there is a restaurant called the Rumfish Grill, where they have a aquarium where you can dine with, and you can even swim with the fish in the restaurant. Now, you could swim before when they opened while people were eating. They felt that was not the best idea, so they've stopped that practice, but they do let you swim in the tanks in the morning or after hours as well, but a unique thing. Tampa Bay Watch is a research educational center in our observatory, focusing on preservation, restoration, conservation, and education. They work with issues like building oyster domes, oyster bars, salt marsh grass, seagrass transplanting, invasive plant removal, storm drain marking, derelict crab removal programs, and coastal cleanup, to name a few. And the Clam Bayou project is a stormwater treatment program involving 20 acres of ponds designed to improve water quality and a 2,600-acre watershed. My house would be right on here if the map went a little bit further, so I personally spend a lot of time in Clam Bayou. And what was interesting to me is since they've done this project, dolphins, manatees, roseate spoonbills, cranes, all kinds of birds and wildlife have come back to the area that were previously not there with the cleanup. The animals know when the area is clean, and they had a spill where they actually kept people out of the water for a couple months, and all the dolphins left. The dolphins knew to leave, and so interesting what nature can teach us with those signs. We've started a pilot program in the ECO-VELAGE at our observatory where we're creating low-tech, low-cost biodigesters that can be used in developing countries. We took this model to Cuba and working with Cubans to implement biogas in their Hemingway Marina project. But the idea of turning food waste into energy is attractive to many restaurants in our area. Fort DeSoto State Park, the entire island is a county park within our observatory that features historic forts and beautiful sunsets, fishing off the piers, beautiful beaches, and so forth. So we invite all of you to come to the islands to work, play, and learn together. And thank you for this brief introduction of our observatory.